Rastimotheos, High Priest of the Temple Divine, spiritual states of consciousness, spiritual states of consciousness, higher states of awareness, seek the sacred wisdom, spiritual intentions, spiritual states of consciousness, higher states of awareness, seek the sacred wisdom, spiritual intentions, spiritual states of consciousness. I'm astral traveling through the universe, cosmic flow I'm transmitting. I'm flowing through the unseen matter, yeah, it's hidden. I'm one with the divine mind, yeah, I can feel it. Purify my mind, stays higher than the ceiling. Medicinal plants and natural remedies for the healing. I go back to the ancient ways, organic positions. Doing the instant meditation, study metaphysics. Mind in the astral plane, yeah, no limits. Rastimotheos on the mic, I'm spitting. Flowing through the space zone, yeah, I'm whipping. Mix up the oceans, the nectar of life, we sipping. Spiritual states of consciousness, higher states of awareness. Seek the sacred wisdom, spiritual intentions. Seek the sacred inner wisdom. Realize your higher self, manifest your inner vision. Seek the sacred inner wisdom. Realize your higher self, manifest your inner vision. Seek the sacred inner wisdom. Realize your higher self, manifest your inner vision. Seek the sacred inner wisdom. Realize your higher self, manifest your inner vision. Let the higher self speak through you like a sound system. The ancient ones are back, the gods have arisen. Realize your higher self, become the ruler of your kingdom. Sit and meditate, own sound, take a listen. Psychoactive plants activate my nervous system. Allow me to realize that I am the solar system. All I'm trying to do is see the sacred inner wisdom. Wisdom flows through me, flowing through me, nervous system. Union with the absolute, in tune with the rhythm. Realize you truly are in tune with your spirit. Spiritual state of consciousness, yeah, no limit. Spiritual state of consciousness, higher states of awareness. Seek the sacred wisdom, spiritual intentions. Spiritual states of consciousness, higher states of awareness. Seek the sacred wisdom, spiritual intentions. Seek the sacred inner wisdom. Realize your higher self, manifest the inner vision. Seek the sacred inner wisdom. Realize. Peace, what up? Yo, this is Tim, Rastimotheos. Let's turn on my video here. Introductions. It's Rastimotheos. I have my brother here. Go ahead.
My name is Elijah Akwesi. You can find me on Facebook by Elijah Akwesi. That's my name. And we finna bring y'all something powerful today, man. Something real special that y'all, can share with each other. And, you can learn something that you can learn. And we're just going to build for y'all, man. We're just going to build, just like how we build on a regular basis for y'all, man. We're going to show y'all what we do, man.
Sure. So just like he said, we're going to build and we're going to give you guys some information. You already know I'm Rastimotheos. This is the Temple of Divine, the Metaphysics, University of Metaphysics, and the cultivation of self-development. So the subject matter we're going to be speaking on today is going to be very broad because we've been doing this for years, in the practices and in our studies. So we're going to just go in and give you guys all the information that we have gathered ourselves and just some things that could help you guys out from what we got in our own personal knowledge and revelation. So, we're going to be doing this also lecture style. So we're going to give each other a couple minutes, to speak our piece and, present our information for you guys to get some information. And then we're also going to give you guys some practices, some things you can do, some sources, some book references, and then we'll wrap it up from there. So, do you want to start out, or you want me to start?
Oh, you can go ahead, man, if you want to.
Of course. So, as you guys know, I like to speak about, spiritual practices, getting in tune with the higher self, and the revelations of the spiritual mind. But I want to go into the actual sciences. I want to actually go into what these different principles mean, and just get into it. So, without further ado, I'm going to start off by speaking about the prana and chi energy, or chi force energy, and then I'm going to go ahead and talk about the kundalini, and then get into how you can use these things for your benefit. So, um, the prana, most people know prana as something that they hear when dealing with yoga, um, and we know that yoga in and of itself means union, the union between man and its highest forces, the forces of the universe, the cosmic principle. So prana in and of itself is a Sanskrit word, and is known as the life force energy, which comes from the sun and connects all elements within the cosmos. Now, this energy in and of itself is used in the Vedic system of medicine, spirituality, and martial arts. So, prana is a Sanskrit word in the Ayurvedic tradition, for the life force or vital energy which permeates the body and is especially connected along the middle or midline of the chakras. Now we know as the chakras as wheels, or wheels of consciousness, or spiritual energy, but in actual reality, the chakras are pertaining to principalities that exist within us, in the metaphysical sense. Now, metaphysics means going beyond the physical body, going beyond the physical uh, understanding of, or the physical scientific understanding of things. So we're going into the spiritual understanding, and the chakras itself is a body system that is within us, um, in and of itself. So that's talking about the metaphysical aspect of the chakras. Now, when dealing with the prana, this energy is considered to be the primal or the vital energy that drives the, life itself. So when you look up the word spirit, you will see the connection between spirit, breath, and this word vigor, or this energy principle. And so prana in and of itself is related to chi in the Chinese medicinal and spiritual cultures, and viewed as having qualities of a nutrient that can be taken into the body, because prana is present in the air. Breathing exercises, as well as different metaphysical practices, can allow one to have a central role in promoting health. But see, we're not only just talking about health or practices of health, but we're talking about practices of the spirit, getting nutrient for the spirit. And I think that's what level we are on, in our times today, and especially when dealing with kundalini, qigong, and different things like that. So let's see, the reason it may be difficult to understand and involve ourselves within this knowledge and understanding is due to our attachment to the many things of this modern world. For example, in the modern world, we have seemed to amplify our needs and wants and all kinds of things that grab our attention, such as the television and other media, computers, smartphones, and thousands of other objects in the houses or at work, and also through advertising, as advertisement. So as people didn't have all these different diversions of things in the ancient world, they were able to pay more attention to their bodies and their feelings and the esoteric aspects of the cosmos, or the unseen hidden principles of the universe itself, the body itself. So since they had this time to pay more attention to themselves, um, they were able to get a better understanding um, of the subtle energy, the subtle principles that exist within the cosmos, and they understood how to use them in order to gain, in order to even survive. Let's just put it that way. They were able to tap into the spiritual forces in order to survive. and like I said, they didn't have the smartphones and all the other extra crap that we got today that, to distract them from actually realizing these principles. And we're not talking about ancient people as primitive or someone who's likened to an animal. I'm talking about uh, people with higher modalities of thought when it comes to technology and building, and we can see this in the historical uh, revelations that we've had, within our times on earth. So just the understanding of chi, or this cosmic energy, and the aspect that we should be paying more attention to this cosmic energy. And so through meditation and metaphysical techniques, uh, our ancient ancestors were able to develop these things, and develop this knowledge and open the way to precise awareness of these energies within the cosmos, not only within the cosmos, but understanding the body as a cosmic vehicle, and understanding that it's not separate from, there's no separate reality from, the spirit to this physical reality. So let's go into the understanding of chi, and then I'm going to pass off the stick to my brother, Elijah, and then we can further build more on what we are speaking on today. So chi, according to Taoism, chi literally means air or breath, and also is a concept that refers to the energy in the flow of that energy, or life force that is considered to pervade all things. Qi is one of the most fundamental concepts in ancient Chinese philosophy, which is borrowed version from the ancient African or Kemetic Nubian understanding of the cosmic energy. In Japan, it is called Ki, and in India, Prana, or Shakti. And the ancient Egyptians referred to it as the Ka, and the ancient Greeks as Pneuma. For the Native Americans, it is the Great Spirit, and for the Christians, it is the Holy Spirit. In Africa, it is known as Ashe, and in Hawaii, it is known as Ha, or the Mana. So, according to Taoist understanding of cosmology, the breath, the elements, and life, there are two basic forms of Qi, and that is the primordial masculine and feminine energies, or what is known as the yin and the yang. So there are many different types of cosmic energy which can be identified through and within these cultures, and many different arts and practices involving the breath and chi or energy work. So in the human body, we can understand this, and it is known as yuan qi, and this is our ancestral energy that comes from the cosmos and is embedded within our bodies, embedded within our DNA. So another type of qi or cosmic energy is known as the huo tian qi, or that which qi, or the postnatal qi. So this is the energy we absorb through our food and water, as well as through the respiration of the breath. Now, there's also a type of qi known as the wei qi, which is also protective energy, a protective qi, which sits as a shield on the surface of the skin, covering the whole body organism. Now, it is also important to note that there is a particular cosmic energy associated with each internal organ, which also allows the body to function holistically and in unison with these cosmic energies in balance. So it is known as the substance which animates the forms of the world into being. It is the frequencies of the vibratory nature of light, sound, and geometric pattern. That is the flow of the oscillating rate of vibration, which is continuously occurring at every moment, and at even the molecular and atomic or subatomic levels to beyond, including metaphysics. So there's also what is known as earth chi and heaven chi, and these are energies which emanates from the cosmos itself. More specifically, the earth and natural things such as plants, herbs, flowers, rivers, lakes, seas, the oceans, the mountains, the hills, the valleyways, the jungles, etc. So now that we have an understanding of the cosmic energy, we can move forward, into our discussion here. and our endeavors on getting knowledge, information, and understanding for self-growth. So, you ready, bro?
Most definitely, brother.
Okay.
All right, peace, everybody. How y'all doing out there? I just want to come through, man, and break down for y'all, man, the metaphysics of the Bible, because I know a lot of people are stuck, in the Bible, and you don't understand. Are you supposed to take the Bible literally speaking, or are you supposed to take it metaphorically speaking, or what? And to answer that question, the book is actually supposed to be decoded, and is actually supposed to be taken with and looked at in a metaphysical context, because not only will you miss the key points in the Bible, but you will get tripped up into thinking that the story is actually a true event that happened in history. So,
Correct. Now, brother, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So a lot of people are coming from that Christian perspective, and like you said, they're not sure what way to understand it. And at one point I was into the biblical perspective too, trying to figure out that way. So can you actually give an understanding of how you came to your understanding?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I came to my understanding, of course, I used to be a Hebrew Israelite, and I used to think that the Bible was actually literally speaking, like he's literally telling you to go out and move out of Babylon and do certain things. Now, if you want to move out of America, then that's fine. But, the book itself, is compiled up into different books. That's why you have the Bible. It means biblios in the Greek word, which means a compilation of many different books. So it was many different myths and mythos that was put together and compiled. That's why you have different books that go with the Bible, such as the Book of Jubilees by R.H. Charles. This book right here, this gives you an in-depth book. This gives you an in-depth understanding on um, the book of Genesis. This book is called the Little Genesis. So when you read the book of Genesis, you actually get an overview on what actually really happened. And you got to go to this book right here. The other book is called the Pseudegraphica, the Apocrypha. Now, this book is with also the Bible. When you go back and get an old Bible, which is the 1611, you will see this book in here. It's in there. And if you go get an older model of the book that the Catholics have, it's a big book like this big, and you'll be able to find all these records in, but they took it out. Also, the Book of Enoch. Now, this book, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Enoch is also too by R.H. Charles. It's also another book that was taken out due to the knowledge that's in it. It would be labeled quote unquote occult knowledge, and we know that occult means hidden knowledge. When you go look, you can type it in right now in Google. You can go to Google, put in occult knowledge or occult, and you will see it means hidden, or something that which is hidden from the masses of the people. Now, to answer the question, how did I come into this? I actually was a Hebrew Israelite. I used to be in a group, and that's where I got my Bible knowledge from. And from there, I realized that, I really wasn't supposed to be taking these things literally speaking, after I had actually done went to Texas and done went to, these different places and lived outside, due to the fact that I thought that a book, I was supposed to going out there into the wilderness to wait on God's return. And it never happened. So the whole key is to understand that the difference between, when you look up the word allegory, that's key, because the Bible even tells you in the Bible that he speaks in dark sayings and parables and allegorical speeches. So allegorical speech is not necessarily something that's actually true, but see, hold on, let's get the definition of allegory right quick. We're gonna get the definition real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, brother. Bring it
We got,
in.
we got we got to we got to get this, man. Cause see, people have to understand the difference on what an allegory is. And I'm gonna give you the scripture to go with it.
Good stuff here. So if you guys are watching, you might want to write some stuff down, do the research yourself. That's what we're here for, to help you guys get to the next level. But we want you guys to do your research too. We got some people viewing, bro. So,
Definitely. You can even go to, hold on one second.
if you guys are out there viewing, you guys can post your questions, and we'll try to get some answers.
So the definition of an allegory, you can put this in on Google. It says a story, poem, or a picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral of a political one, which is a parable or a metaphor or a symbol. So what am I about to show you? Which leads me to the lesson for tonight. What is a allegory? Is the Bible encoded with mysteries? Are you supposed to take it literally? See, these are the questions that you got to ask yourself, because when you read the book, you find out that people actually literally think that these things happen, but it just told you an allegory is something that's symbolically or a metaphor. So, which means what? It's a deeper meaning or a metaphysical meaning behind the book, and you got to decode the book to find out what is the meaning behind the book, what it's actually trying to say. So we're gonna dig into it tonight. So now I'm about to read to you. Let's go to, if you want to, everybody, I want you to grab your Bible. I'll give you enough time to do it. Grab your Bible. Hold on one moment. Hey, hold on one moment, bro. Give me 1 second. Hello? Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I got the Bible right here, but I can go into the Kundalini a little bit. So,
All right, yeah, because I need to get this noise in the background.
okay, that's cool.
Hold on, give me 1 second, y'all. I'm gonna be back to break this thing down.
So yeah, like he was speaking about with the biblical perspective. I also have my experiences, going through the understanding of this book right here, and trying to understand it. Speaking, not in terms of the metaphysical understanding, but in terms of taking things literally. You'll definitely get lost, and you'll definitely not be able to find certain things that you're looking for, and a lot of things can be taken out of context, especially if you are trying to learn from someone who, especially if you're trying to learn from someone who, you know, doesn't really understand the biblical perspective as well. Now, for me, I took it on my hands to, you know, try to study it on my own. So I read it a couple times, but you know, we're not saying that the Bible is negative or that, you know, that there's something wrong with it. We're saying that we should look at it a specific way, you know, that we shouldn't be looking at it in a certain way as well. So, and that's one thing the brother is trying to mention here is that, you know, we should be looking at it a different way. Now, I said I was going to go into the Kundalini, but I'm just giving you guys my background perspective, you know, on the Bible. Just you know, waiting for my brother to come back. But you know, just understanding that the biblical perspectives can be broken down in many different ways, you know, and we can interpret them many different ways, gives us a better understanding that it's not just one way of looking at things. And that's what we're here to present today, that there's multiple ways that one can see these perspectives, specifically the biblical perspective.
Yep, I'm back now. All right. So jumping back where I left off from, turn to your. Hold on one moment.
So yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, you know, you can write them down and we'll try to see if we can answer them for you. We have the question box open here. This is our first time doing this, so please bear with us.
So, like I was saying, turn to your Bible to Genesis 32. Genesis 32, and I'm gonna start at 20. Or better yet, no, I'm gonna start at Genesis 32 and 22. I'll give y'all time to get it. Genesis 32:22. Now it says, and he rose up that night. This is talking about Jacob. It said, matter of fact, I'm gonna start at 20. It says, I say ye moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appraise him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So he went the present. So he went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night and took his two wives and his. This is verse 22. His two women servants and his I don't know what translation is this, is 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok, and he took them and sent them over the brook, and sent over he sent over what he had, and Jacob was left alone, and wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day, and he saw that he prevailed not against him. He touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint. As he wrestled with him, he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, what is thy name? He said, Jacob. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel, for as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and has prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, "Tell me, I pray thee, thy name." And he said, "Wherefore it is it that thou doest ask me my name." And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place, the name of the place, the name of the place, pineal. For I have seen the face, so I have seen God face to face. Or in some translations, it would be pineal. But in this translation, it's pineal, Peniel. Or in this, one of your translations, it might be Pheniel. For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Pineal, the sun rose upon him, and he hated upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrank. So now we finna go into the metaphysics to decode this mystery of life out of mythology. And what is it really talking about? It's talking about the battle within, not outside, but within. Now let's break this thing down. And I wrote some notes here. It says, running to the story of Jacob's wrestling match. It is important for us to understand what is meant when Genesis author states that God saw God face to face. Remember, this statement is made in conjunction with naming the wrestling location, pineal. Don't let the different spelling fool you. We can now say that the light of the pineal gland is associated with God's face. Why? Because the light from your physical eyes, when you look through the physical eyes, that is a gland that is light sensitive. It is sensitive to light. Now, that's the key thing, because it's in a dark place. It's in the middle between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, in between the two. So it's in a very dark place, but how does it hold so much light? We're going to get into that. It says, this statement is made in conjunction with naming the wrestling match the location, which is pineal. Don't let the different spelling fool you. We can now say that the light of the pineal gland is associated with God's face. In other words, it's symbolic of experiencing light of God beyond the physical plane of the five senses. And somehow the physical pineal gland is a doorway of sorts to senses. And somehow the pineal gland, and somehow the pineal gland is the doorway of sorts to the higher reality. So you would understand that once you activate this gland, you will understand that the reality that you've been living in, and you will see the truth behind the lies. You won't have no more truths. You won't have no more lies in front of your face, because you can see for what it really is. You can see things in a more metaphysical, or what you would call a spiritual light. Now, it says, let me state that again for anyone who might be confused. Your pineal gland is a doorway to a higher state of consciousness. So it's a higher state of consciousness. And see, I also talk about this. You can go get this in Amazon. I also talk about this in my book. It's called Understanding Religion by Akwesi. So this also too is a reference in my book. I break it down. You can get this book on Amazon. You can purchase it on Amazon. Just put in Understanding Religion by who? Elijah Akwesi, and you'll find this book. I talk about this in my book also. So with that being said, So it's a doorway to higher consciousness. Now, what we're saying is, and what this metaphysical breakdown is saying is that you can't find God out there, but it's within. You can find him where you can find it, because it's not a he or she to be defined as. It's defined as it, because it could be you. If only you access the higher levels of consciousness. So it's a state of consciousness, just like poverty and being rich. It's a state of consciousness. So you follow me? So, because, and also too, let me make this point before I read on. When I say that poverty and being rich is a state of consciousness, I mean that whatever you speak or whatever you say, whatever you think you are, you can be. If you say, okay, I'm poor, a result of that is a poor mentality. You say I'm rich, you will feel as though you are rich, but not rich in substance, but rich in the mind, rich in health, and all the way around. You see what I'm saying? The Tibetans the Tibetans that live in Tibet, they don't have, a lot of material wealth and things like that, but they feel rich. How do they feel rich? Because they are at peace, supreme peace, and that's what we all seek. That's freedom. Freedom is being able to not be controlled in the mind. That's freedom. Nobody's controlling your mind but you. And by you controlling your mind, you control everything else in the physical. So we're gonna break this thing down. It says, so the pineal gland is a doorway to a higher state of consciousness. This does not mean that the physical you goes anywhere, but rather the higher you is realized by a spiritual experience where your pineal gland is awake. When your pineal gland is awakened, that's deep right there. Now it says, notice that in the scripture, the story states that Jacob was alone when this encounter with God happened. This signifies the necessity of going to our prayer closet to get in touch with our inner selves in prayer and meditation. See, that's how you communicate with God. What you do is you meditate. You put your hand in the yogic positions and you find peace and you breathe. That's prayer, because see, when you pray, everybody knows this. Everybody knows this, and I'm not trying to diss anybody's religion. I just have to shed light. On these things. Everybody knows that when you pray, do you hear that voice that's explained in the books? Do you hear the yes, come inside? No, you hear yourself answering back to yourself. So you hear yourself. So you're speaking to your higher self. That's why in the New Testament Christ said what? I and my Father are one. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Why? Because the Father looks just like him. Meaning, in other words, your higher self is you. You're just manifested in the physical form. You're not your bodies. You're not the physical shell. You are an entity that's inside of the shell. You follow me? So you are an entity inside of a shell. That's why when you leave this body will rust, but your life will never pass away. And also too, that's why in the New Testament Christ said that the kingdom is within. And the disciples asked him, "Where is the kingdom of heaven?" He said, "The kingdom of heaven is not you can't find it, but you can only find it because it's within." You see what I'm saying? So now it says meditation has a profound effect on the consciousness. And I believe it is one method that one can emergently awaken the pineal gland or the third eye. That's why when you close your eyes, at night, what do you see? As a matter of fact, anybody that has never meditated before, what I want you to do tonight is I want you to go close your eyes and see what you see. And I guarantee you'll see spectrums of light within darkness, because that's what melanin is. And that's what happens when the pineal gland is that it has light sensitive rays within inside of it. So when you close your eyes at night, you're looking through the pineal gland, and those different colors. Some people might see white, a flash of light come by their eyes. Some people might see a flash of red, blue, purple, all these different colors, because darkness creates all other lights on the spectrum, on the light spectrum. So now it says, for anyone who is still not sure how real this experience can be, I suggest you do some research into what the ancients believe about the third eye. And you can also go in the New Testament where Christ said, the light of the body is the eye. Therefore, if thine light be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. So that's also too in the book of Matthew. You can find that in the book of Matthew, chapter 4 or 5. It says, I would also remind you the fact that Jesus clearly stated that the kingdom does not come by observation. That's what he said. The kingdom does not come by observation. Why? Because you can't observe where the kingdom is at. It's not in a particular location, but it's within your own soul. It's that profound inner peace within yourself. When you're not worried about, what's going to happen to you and this and that. Am I going to get shot today? And this and that. No, you have peace with everything around you. You have peace. You accept the all. You accept the all, and it's profound because I can't get mad and complain what happens in my life. Why? Because that's a part of the all. Everything is divine. Everything serves its divine purpose. Everything, whether it's good or what we perceive as bad, because when here on this physical plane, we have to have a conscious mind, which says to us that, something is not right, but when you go on the spiritual plane, you're dealing with your subconscious mind, which means that you're not trying to judge what's either right or what's either wrong, but things will be what they will be. And once you have the mentality, what it is, whatever happens, then that's divine. And that's getting yourself in tune with peace. Now, the kingdom of God. Oh yeah, it said Jesus clearly stated the kingdom does not come by observation, seeing of the physical eyes, but the kingdom of God has to be realized within us. It turns out this story is quite profound. It was meant to teach us about God, and more importantly, it teaches us about the spiritual journey within. And it is the same within that Jesus speaks of when he states that the kingdom of God is within you. Let's dive into the wrestling match of Jacob and God in Genesis to understand what I mean. Jacob's wrestling match with God takes place near the end of Genesis chapter 32. Jacob is in a process of returning to the land of God promised Abraham. At one point in the journey, Jacob divides up his family and animals into different companies and sends them ahead while he stays back on one side of the creek, and he is completely alone. According to the biblical story, something strange happens that night. A mysterious man wrestles with him until the daybreak. But who is this mystery man, and where does he come from? The story gets even stranger. This mysterious man could not beat Jacob at the wrestling match, but he was able to dislocate Jacob's thigh. The same man then tries to leave once morning, but Jacob doesn't let him, and at least does not until he gives him a blessing from the man when he is said to have when he is said, and done, the man tells Jacob, thy name shall be no more called Jacob, but Israel, for a prince has thou power with God and with men has thou prevailed. Here we get the first hint that the mystery man is God himself. The fact that the biblical author means that the mysterious man to be God is prevailed 2 verses later, Genesis 32:30. And Jacob called the name of that place pineal. For thou hast seen the face, for thou hast seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Now, the key thing to point out in this story is what is he wrestling? What is he wrestling, and why is he wrestling? He's wrestling with himself because he is trying to get to the highest level of consciousness, which is to reach the pineal gland, which is that door. He's trying to open that door. He's trying to open that door to that seat, to his own soul. Because that's another thing, that's another name for the pineal gland. It's called the seat of the soul, a seat of higher consciousness. So whenever you access this level, you begin to see, or a manifestation of your true self, who you really are. Here's a key thing to hint. Ask yourself this question. Who was I before I came into a physical body? Who was you? What was your name? Ask yourself that question. What was that name? Who was you before you came into the physical? Because if this body is going to go away, obviously it's a spirit, it's a soul vibrating with inside of you every day when you get up. So you got to ask yourself that question. And then those that might say, well, you know what? I just don't understand this stuff. How can this be? I don't know if anybody ever seen a dead body. If you see a dead body, you can hit the body, you can beat the body, you can hit it like that, and the body doesn't respond. It just doesn't respond. But what is this that gives you feeling? What is operating in your nervous system? What is operating in your nervous system to where you feel ouch and you feel that? What is that? That's because what's operating in your nervous system, and within the nervous system is your own soul. So the soul feels, not the body. The soul feels, not the body. I'm gonna say that one more time. The soul feels, not the body. And what does it feel? It feels emotions. It feels pain. It feels these things. The physical body doesn't feel anything. You're just wrapped up in this tissue of the physical. So if you understand that, you understand that you also have a false side to yourself too, that don't even want you to know that you even have a soul that exists within the body. And you know what that's called? Ego. The ego is the false self that religions have made out to be a devil, or Lucifer or Satan and all these different things. They use the characteristics of that to then use characters in the book. That goes back to what I was saying, allegory. They created that so they created everything that's inside of yourself. They created it in the external side to be characters. So when you understand that, he was wrestling with himself. He was wrestling with himself to bring out of himself the higher self, or the perfect self, the oneness, the complete oneness within inside of yourself. Everybody is made. It doesn't matter what race, what gender, your sexual preference. You have a higher self to you, and you all have the potential to be gods. You got a question, brother?
I was gonna say, man, you're right on track. Keep going. If you want me to intervene, let me know.
Oh, most
Uh,
definitely.
yeah, I got my stuff ready too. So whenever you want me to come in, just let me know.
How many people on?
We got a couple viewers. See 2 or 3. So those of you guys that are viewing, if you have any questions, post questions. I'd like to say thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah,
We're
appreciate y'all for
getting
watching,
into
man.
yeah.
But the key thing is that I want to point out is Jacob was wrestling with himself to bring himself under subjection, because it's a battle between yourself. It's a battle of supremacy. Who's going to rule? Either you or your ego. You can either decide your ego wants to flare up in your life as in the forms of setbacks, insecurities. Whenever you're in a relationship and you start a new relationship and you think that um, the new girl gonna do you like the last girl, because you hear that voice in your mind telling you what? You hear it in your mind telling you, hey, don't trust her. You can't never trust no female. Don't trust no female. But not understanding that it was what you manifested from your mind that made that particular girl that had with the same characteristics attract to you. So the ego, so you have to, it's not a matter of dethroning the ego, but you have to control the ego. You have to understand what it's doing. And the only thing it's doing is you can use it to block certain things, from you. It's in your consciousness. Your conscious mind is 10%, and the subconscious mind is in at least 90 or 80%. So what you want to do is you want to get to know the unconscious mind of yourself, because everything that you do is a result of your unconscious behavior. That's why people act the way they act. And they say, man, you ain't even in your right mind. Well, of course you ain't in your right mind, because you just, you operating with the wrong mind. You got to understand, you got to deal with the spirit. It's in the spirit. It's in the spirit. And that's what it's all about. So that story is deeply symbolic, and it has deeply many metaphysical teachers, such as Bobby Hemifield Valentine, the teachers that taught us the information that we have today. Um, they all, any metaphysical teacher, they'll refer you to Genesis 32, because it's highly and deeply symbolic. Now, also Jesus, this is what I'm about to deal with next. Jesus, Satan, and the devil. The
All right,
divine.
bro. Before you get into that, let's go. I want to speak a little bit more about the ego and the
Oh yeah, go ahead,
kundalini
bro.
and all of that. So, just to shape up and to get into that.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now we're going in today, bro. And if there's not a lot of people watching it now, while it's live, it's gonna be on the internet channel. So on YouTube, so that way, those people who can't make it right now, they can view it later. So, hopefully we get some people to view this, and hopefully we can help those who are watching.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let me just speak a little bit about the ego and go into that aspect a little bit more. And I'm going to be specifically speaking out of one of my other books. I don't know how well you can see that with the light. The Ancient Metaphysical Science of the Development of the Soul. I wrote this last year. And actually on this channel, you can see specifically what I'm about to speak about of the ego. So let's start out with the thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and then get into the ego a little bit. So thoughts are a byproduct of the impulses in the mind through the connection of the nervous system and embodying emotions. So thoughts in and of themselves are a byproduct of thinking or energy conducted in the mind. Thoughts are an impulse of the mind of itself. So each thought has a core center. The center of thoughts are considered the ego. So the conscious mind and the thoughts are synonymously related, rational, linear, and based on modes of perception. So all thoughts held in the mind are capable of expressing themselves through emotions, feelings, and becoming behavior. The thinker gives life to their thoughts, known as thought character, which then form, which then formation becomes the conclusion of thought through behavior, emotions, and action. So the thought center is a collection of thoughts in the mind, one attached to the other. Thought like attracts like thought attracts like thoughts, forming within one's consciousness and one's awareness. So thoughts then become lowered into physical vibration, behavior, action, and reaction, and then are perceivable to the physical senses. So, for example, love is perceivable to the human sense organs through one's behavior as it manifests from the heart center. So, the link between the earth and the universe is the mind, and through perception and the nervous system becomes the link between the brain and the rest of the body, as perception through the nerve centers, thoughts, and emotions. So the nervous system in and of itself carries the absolute energy of life throughout the physical body through thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Nerves radiating from the spinal cord, unifying the brain, consciousness, and experience of the physical world and the mental world. So the question is, who are you? How do you know you are you? That's the question. Who are you? How do you know you are you? What is the self? Who and what am I? Where do I come from? Right? So how does our 3-pound mass called the brain produce our identities of who we are? That's the question you should ask yourself. I ask myself the same question. How does our 3-pound mass called brain produce who we are, what we call ourselves? The average neuron, consisting of about 100,000 molecules, is about 80% water. Now, this is high science for when we start talking about the pineal gland, which is also sitting in particularly 90% water, or 90% fluid. So the brain houses about 100 billion cells, and thus that's 10 to the 15 power numbered amount of molecules. So each neuron gets 10,000 or other so-called connections from other cells within the brain. So within each neuron, the molecules are replaced approximately 10,000 times in an average lifespan. Yet human beings have a continuous sense that self is stable over time. So just the understanding that your molecules in your brain are changing billions of times, over the period of your lifespan, can get you to understand that, who you call yourself is not truly yourself at all, because you're changing over a period of time, and technically approximately 10,000 times in an average lifespan. So the truth of the matter is, most people use their mind processing and functional ability to dwell on their mundane problems rather than focusing on the overall fundamental purpose of existence, of themselves and even the environment, the nature. What's the existence of nature, right? So this leaves hardly any mind functioning power for innovation, creative problem solving, and even enlightenment. So then you wonder why we have the problems we do in the world, because we're focusing on mundane issues rather than going beyond. And this is what we're here to speak about today in our talk, in our lecture, is about going beyond. And how do you go beyond, and how they relate to all the sciences that we know as science, whether it's mythology, because that's a form of science, or whether it's music, dance, and so on and so forth. So basically, the problem is, how do we identify who we are if we truly experiencing the world through limited perception and belief? What is with this question, we seek to realize the truest nature of ourselves, not limited to linguistics or any other boundaries set up by this world or by perception of this world within this world. So the challenge is to understand the boundary that is set up by the world and our perception of this world, and to disidentify or unidentify ourselves, yourselves, with your limited sense of self that was created by the filters of this world. You see what I'm saying? So one has to go beyond the boundaries set up of their perception of how they see themselves. Who are you? Who you see yourself as is basically built up of the modulations set up by those things that other people have given you to tell you who you are. And what we're here to show you with our sciences is that there's a way to develop a consciousness and awareness of who you truly are outside of these boundaries. And that's really the core science of spirituality, and really speaking about the ego, going beyond the ego. You know what I'm saying? So in the freedictionary.com, when we look up the word self, what does self mean? How do they define self? Because if you ask yourself, who are you? You know what I'm saying? And then you have self, you start to wonder, okay, what does this really mean? Is this definition defining me as a human being, or is it defining me according to language, and so on and so forth, the boundaries set up in this world? Because who you are is beyond the boundaries that can be set up by any world, any society of the world. So, the freedictionary.com defines self as the total essence of a particular being or person, the individual. Now, okay, let's take a minute right there to view and understand what this is saying. The total essence or particular being of a person, the individual. Okay, the total essence, that includes the cosmological aspect of who you are. And we're going to get into this too, but the cosmological aspect of who you are, the
That's
total, yes, the total essence. And then you have the individuality. I'm an individual compared to you or this person because we all are unique in the way our brain functions and the way we process information. But as far as how do you define yourself, who are you? We have to take that first one, the total essence. What is your essence? You see what I'm saying? That's who you truly are, your essence. So it also has definitions like one's consciousness of one's own being or identity, the ego. Now, we can get into that in a second. And then the next one is one's own interests, welfare or advantage. And the next one is an individual's consciousness of his or own identity of being. So we're speaking about what is the identity of self? Who are you? Define yourself. Now, are you going to define yourself by the constructs set up by society, or are you going to define yourself through the spiritual actions in which you truly are? Because that's what we're speaking about. The totality of one's existence. What is the totality of your existence? You see, that is the question. So the human person cannot be reduced to brain processes and events, and it is difficult to understand a whole human person without understanding the social cultural context in which the person lives, as well as their internal subjective experiences. Now, I want to take a break right there, because what that is saying is, when we go watch the news and they say, oh, this person is this or this person is that, that's built up by the constructs of society to get you to think of that certain person or that person in a specific way. So a lot of these things that we're speaking on also can be understood in terms of, what they do to us, trying to control our egos through their advertisements and their constructs, because they'll say, oh, someone is a thug, when really they're only portrayed as that through their social construct, their social political construct that was set up not by that person. You see what I'm saying? So basically that person is only considered a thug according to that society, and that person may just be trying to feed themselves. You see what I'm saying? Right. So we have to look at how are we defining things? How do we define ourselves? So the human behavior does not really resemble computer programs at all. So we always hear like, oh, well, human beings are machines, well, or computers. We ourselves are not in particularly computers. I think we're not machines. That's my understanding. So to make any sense of human behavior, we must confront the mind and consciousness. This means confronting our beliefs, our goals, our aspirations, our desires, our expectations, and our intentions. None of these which is relevant to the functioning of computers. Now let me let me say that again. To make any sense of human behavior, we must confront the mind and consciousness. This means confronting belief systems, one's goals, one's aspirations, one's desires, one's expectations, and one's intentions. None of these which is relevant to the functioning of computers. So that is the main reason why I don't think that we're computers or that we even are machines. Because we have goals, beliefs, aspirations, desires, expectations, and intentions, things that computers, machines, and those things that are not living do not have. So we're still talking about how do you define yourself? You see what I'm saying? So in terms of self-consciousness or self-awareness, consciousness of oneself as an immediate subjective experience, self as an agency or experiencing oneself as cause of an action or even the cause of any action, and also the effect of those causes. You know, seeing oneself like that can get one into a higher state of consciousness. Rather, you're just thinking of things that people want to call you. That's just lower mundane reality, especially if you're trying to define yourself. You see what I'm saying? And the spirituality is based on how you define yourself. You know what I'm saying? So the real question is, who are you? And what is the fundamental purpose to your existence? So let's identify the ego. How do we identify it? So identifying the ego is basically this. At the root to our existence, there is a spark. Now, this spark comes from an animating life force of the cosmos. Our ego is the shell that encodes itself around the divine spark, which allows human beings to interact with it and create relationships to the spark and that which we call the environment. The ego is its primary function of the conscious mind and of the senses. The ego, defined, means the I or the self of any person. So when I say, who are you? And you say, I am blah, 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 that is your ego. You see what I'm saying? But now this is another way to understand how to take that personality back. How do you take the power back to say that's what you are? You are this, you are that. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you know who you truly are, how do you express that? It is the I am. So like the brother was saying, you're not supposed to take the ego and destroy it and throw it away. The ego, you're supposed to work around the ego. The guard is standing at the door. All you got to do is feed the guard so you can get past the guard and into the kingdom. That's what we're saying. We're not saying that you have to destroy, you know, because ultimately you need a guard to protect the kingdom, but you have to be the ninja looking at yourself, trying to get into yourself. You see what I'm saying? To then develop and cultivate in the spiritual aspect. Now, the ego is the rational component of the psyche that experiences and reacts to the outside world and mediates between the demands of identification of self or self's importance. So when you say self's importance or self-identification, you're dealing with the ego. Now let's and this comes from Carl Jung's aspect of the anima and then the real self, the inner self, and then the artificial man. So identifying the ego is basically the ego is connected to the roles we choose to play in this world, the actorial stereotypes which we play in life, like a stage of actors, identifying with the costumes and the performance that identify or identity of that individual character. The ego is the current version of our personal identity. So the identity that we feel as the role for our animating principle to play within this world, because our animating life spark needs a case. It is born in this casing into this world, and this case is that ego. You see what I'm saying? So it's about understanding the ego and then coming forth with the understanding that you're not supposed to destroy the ego, it's rather create an ego, create the ego that you are who you are. See what I'm saying? Instead of trying to live according to the cultural constructs or the perceptions of a society that has nothing to do with who you truly are. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about identifying the ego. I don't know, Elijah, you want to put some stuff in there, implement some stuff, see what you got to say?
Man, that was deep. And that was important that you said that, because a lot of times in society we like to identify ourselves with our race, or we like to identify ourselves with our occupation, opposed to, you know, who we truly are. Because at the grassroots of it all, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't know, man. And see, the thing about it is, you don't search for who you truly are in any particular text per se. You have to look and find who you are within. You gotta deal with that inner child within to find out exactly who am I, what am I here to do, and understand that there is no such thing, you know, as you know, I'm black, you white, this and that and the third. You know, it's the spirit that's inhabiting your body. You know, we all are energy. You know, we all have a soul. You know, so I'm about to build on something real quick. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, man, we had a whole bunch of viewers on here for a second, and I think they probably got cut off. But yeah, we'll keep going. Like I said, we're here to bring this information.
So so now I'm finna go into some more metaphysics. This is going to be very deep and profound. It says Jesus, Satan, the devil, the divine ego that fell from its heavenly state above and found itself immersed in material poverty, which is what? The physical body. So when you read these religious texts, or you might read something that says, but the fallen angels fell from heaven. No, that story is all of you. What happened was we fell into an ego, which means when you have to have an ego in order to be in a physical body. You know, that's what you warn against. You know, you warn against the mind, and the mind projects itself in the physical. Everything is a projection from the mental. Same thing when you go to sleep at night, when you have a dream. What is that? That's a projection from the mind. And also too, type this in too on when he was talking about ego. I meant to bring this up in there. Type in residual self-image. Residual self-image.
That's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, and you'll see exactly what that is, and that is a mental projection of your digital self. Same thing he said on Matrix. It's a mental projection of your digital self. So you wonder why we in the age that we living in? Because we are a projection. We are a projection of a mind into the digital. So now I'm finna get into some occult science a little bit. You know, to tie this thing in too.
Yeah, bro. And then because I'm gonna bring up some more occult knowledge right after you too. We got a whole bunch of stuff we're gonna cover today for you, man.
Most definitely.
So,
How many
yes.
people watching?
I think we got a couple people right now. 2 or 3 right now.
All right. So it says Lucifer falling from heaven. So what does that mean? Metaphysically, it means your consciousness falling from a higher state, which is God, from the cosmos to you, your crown chakra. So that's how you that's how you got immersed in the physical. You came through the head, and your spirit rests through the body, the crown chakra. So now to the lowest state, which is the last chakra, which is your root, which is red. Why the devil, the devil and all that and stuff painted red? Because why is that particular chakra red? Because that chakra deals with survival instincts, fight or flight, things that you fear the most. So if you was afraid of clowns while you was little, that's how your mind gonna project. So when you deal with this chakra, you're gonna see clowns jumping in front of you, ha 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 ha, jumping around in your face.
Right.
But see, the key is it's not real. It's an illusion. It's an illusion of the mind to get you afraid because it's trying to help you elevate past that fear and
Right.
understand that fear does not exist. Danger is real. You can be in danger, but false evidence appearing real, fear, fear is not real. And because see, we're limitless beings. We don't fear anything. You know, a lot of people fear the physical death. You shouldn't fear death. And back in ancient antiquity, we accepted it as it come because we know it's a part of life. So now it says most people today operate in their lowest chakras. So that's why you see people trying to, let's just take United States government for an example, in the sense of lower self. They start wars, false flag attacks. There's nobody in the world trying to attack them, but why is they, what I mean? So it's almost like I'm going outside my shirt off, like, who ready to box? Who ready to box? What I mean? Like, nobody is trying to mess with me, but yet I'm trying to find an enemy, but not understanding the enemy is myself. And see, that's what,
Right.
that's, that's the key is to what people need to understand is that that's the same thing they did in Rome, Greece. They had false flag attacks. Nobody in the world is trying to mess with America, man. Nobody. Like, everybody wants to live in peace and harmony. But you only see controversy come up when America starts doing things. They try to, push people into fighting. Like, yeah, I'm gonna make you fight, I'm poking at you. Because why? So you look at your own government, that's an example of operating in a lower self, constantly on the defense, in the offense, trying to start certain things, knowing there's no enemy, but the enemy is only within. So if only the United States government could look within, then they'll realize, you know what, we are the enemy. We are the people.
Right.
You
That's what
know, oh my goodness. I'm so hurt right now. Like, like, if only they could realize that they would the light bulb would come on and be like, being just like the light bulb behind me, it would turn on in their minds and say, you know what, we're the enemy of all civilization. We're starting things, creating wars, starving people, and we wonder why people are doing the things that they do. We wonder why. And not everybody is operating like this. I mean, you got, it doesn't matter what color, you got black, white people, are elevating higher in this time because they understand that the lower self, the lower nature is not the way to be. And I'm about to break down what that lower nature is in a minute. It says most people today operate in the lower chakras. The devil is sometimes pictured as a half man, half beast. Man represents your higher nature. The beast represents your lower nature. This is what the Sphinx represents, the Baphomet and Masonry. It's all symbolism. So it's all symbolism. When you look at these images, so you can't, nobody can say, okay, the Baphomet is the devil, that's Satan. Oh my God, oh my God. No, it's a symbolic image meant for those that's in the occult, which go back to the word meaning that I told you, occult meaning hidden knowledge. Those with the hidden knowledge that can see and understand, then they know what this image represents and they know what the Sphinx represents. So it says, oh, you got something to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say, but then those images are portrayed through our culture as, or through our society, the culture that we live in, as being something evil or satanic or something like that. when
Exactly.
that's the nature of human beings, is to fear those things that they don't know. So essentially what you were talking about before is is having fear of things that we don't understand, and that's where fear comes from: false
Yeah,
knowledge,
that's
false
right.
understanding. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
That's right. And that's key. False understanding. That's what it is. So it says the ancient scriptures talk about the soul being trapped in the prison of the body, but the way is not to disdain the body and seek um excuse me, but the way out is not to disdain the body and seek life and of pure spirit. We cannot escape our obligation to the animal who is lending us its body for our own advancement. We can hinder we can hinder we can hinder to transfigure these brute bodies. So it's a reason why you're here. We're all of us are here to evolve as light spiritual beings. We're here to evolve. We're here to deal with the things that make us more powerful and more refined at that. Just like gold. You have to take gold, you have to take gold into this process so that this gold can come out sharper and refined. That's why the Bible tells you, in the scriptures and the prophecy, that he's going to try you like gold is tried in the furnace. So these trials and these things that's happening in your life is meant to spiritually advance you. Just like you might say now, okay, boom, I can look back in the past and say, oh snap, I remember when I was in that situation and how I was brought out of that situation and the knowledge and the wisdom that I obtained from that situation. Now, somebody else that's in the situation just like me, I can therefore help them
That's
the
right.
same way, the same way that I was in the situation.
Hmm.
So it's going to go into a Greek myth. According to Plato and the ancients, Hades was not a place of punishment for depart human souls. It is this earth, which is the death of the divine soul. The gods came to die so that we mortals might live. Death is a transition from one state to another. Boom. What is that? That's the law. Look this up. I'm going to say it real slow. The law of thermodynamics and the conservation of energy states that energy cannot be neither energy cannot be created or destroyed, but can transfer from one state to the next, transferring into kinetic energy. So that just destroys the whole hell myth anyway, because nobody can destroy your energy. Your energy has been here thousands, if not millions, and however you want a number. It's been here since the beginning when atoms and protons came together. That's how long your energy has been here. And way before that, energy has no beginning or no ending. It's just constant. There will always be energy. So basically, no one can punish your energy. You can beat the body, like I said earlier. You can beat the body, hit the body when the body is gone, but it doesn't respond. So you can beat the body, but you can't hurt the soul or the energy that's inside of you. So it says the gods came to die so that the mortals might live. Death is a transition from one state to another. When humans have the right understanding, they can birth the god and thus uplift earthly existence. The meaning Satan, or Sin, the divine soul, falls to earth and incarnates in human beings. This is Lucifer, the light bearer, or coming to earth. And the light bearer is only in the occult knowledge is the pineal gland. The divine soul becomes trapped in an animal body And it is very easy to find it to be overwhelmed by the animal nature. When when then happens, it becomes brutish. The true meaning uh, of the beast 666 is not, something that's, evil or per se. It's the 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neurons, which make this body, this God body, these these atoms and protons. But you can transcend the 6 and go to a, what is it, a one, I believe.
Yep, the 1 and 1 or the 9, which
One
is
or the
what,
9.
10.
10, exactly. So you can transcend you can transcend the animal nature,
Mm-hmm.
which is, so you got to overcome the lower chakras. And once you get to that doorway, your halfway point, which is throat, and once you clear that throat, you're able to connect with the divine, and that's when you get clairvoyance, um,
Yeah.
um, all those, you'll be able to foresee the future, things like that.
Hey, brother, can I speak on a little bit of that aspect?
Yeah,
We
go
can
ahead.
go into the aspects of the chakras.
Most definitely.
So most people know about the chakras, wheels of consciousness, but here are the physical energy centers within the body known as the 7 nerve plexes. Now, what I'm about to show you here is the 7 nerve plexes that you're dealing with as far as the physical body and the chakras, because you hear about, you got the chakras, but a lot of people speak about, oh, well, that's Plato science, and there's no such thing as the chakras. Well, actually, in fact, you have what is known as the 7 nerve plexes, and let's see here if we can bring up the 7 nerve plexes for you. So let's see. Here you have the 7 nerve plexes. Now I know it may be backwards, the letters, but this is the spinal cord. But here up the spinal column, you have the nervous plexus. Now this is the great centers within the body, known as the great 7 nerve plexus of the body. These plexes are associated with the astral body, or energetic thoughts and emotions. There are many more chakras than just 7, and they are representations of the area where the spinal cord and the central nervous system meet. There are 2 aspects of which represents the yin and the yang principles, called the Ida and the Pingala, which form along the middle, or the Shumshuna, which are the 2 pathways that these opposing forces travel. So here you have the spinal column, but on one side you have the feminine, and on the other you have the masculine, going up to that base center of the brain. But all of these are centers in which they connect with your thoughts in your mind, as well as the energy within the body, to get what you have as life. And so this is just a picture of what the nerves look like in the back, as far as on a from the medical perspective. But let's see if we can get another picture. So let's talk about, okay, well, we know that there's 7 aspects, so we can go into the 7 aspects. Now, the first one, let's start, which way do you guys want to start, up or down? We'll start with the lower, and then move our way up, which is actually the natural process of spirituality. So at the root chakra, what he was speaking about when he spoke about the Satan, or the satanic aspect, or the dark energy aspect, would be the root, what is called the Kakagul plexus, the root chakra, which represents the earth. The symbol is an elephant. The gem is a garnet, hematite, or bloodstone. Hematite we know as the stone that keeps us rooted, right? And so the food would be protein meats. Endo glands would be the adrenal glands, and the emotions would be security or fear. The sense organ would be the nose and smell. Um, the main issue is dealing with survival. The principle is gravity. The property is of concentration. The right is the right to have. Goals are the grounding, stability, prosperity, physical health, and the biofunction is elimination. And the archetype is the great mother. So that is the root. Now we can go into the second aspect, which is the sacral plexus. The sacral plexus are dealing with genitalia, water, fish, sea monster. So the gem would be the coral or carnelian. The foods would be liquids. The endo gland would be the gonads. Emotions would be passion or guilt. The sense organ would be the tongue for taste. Main issue is sexuality and emotions. The principle is attraction of the opposites. Property is connection. The right is the right to feel. The goals is fluidity of movement, connection, pleasure, and the biofunction is reproduction, and the archetype is the lover. So now let's move up to the third aspect, the solar plexus. The solar plexus would be the lustrous gem. You have the element of fire, the lion or the ram. The gem would be topaz or amber. Foods would be complex carbohydrates. Endoglands would be the pancreas. Emotion would be confidence or shame. The sense organ would be the eyes. Insight, the main issue would be power or energy. The principle is combustion. The property is expansion. Deals with the right to act. The goal would be strength of will, vitality, purpose, effectiveness, and the biological function would be digestion. And the archetype is the magician. So the next one is the heart chakra or the cardiac plexus. The heart or the cardiac plexus, also known as unstruck beat, dealing with the element of air. The animal, the antelope or the dove. You have the gem, the emerald, rose quartz. Foods, you have vegetables. So the endo gland, you have the thymus. Emotion, you have love and grief. Sense organ, you have the skin or the sense of touch. The main issue, you have love, relationships. The principle, you have equilibrium, property, balance. You have right or the right to love. The goals is balance in relationships, compassion, self-acceptance. The biofunction is respiration. And the archetype is the healer. Moving up the pathway as I showed you before on the picture. Let's see if you could see that. But as I showed on the picture, you have these glands or these nerve plexes that moves up the body or moves up the spinal cord. So let's move into the throat, also known as the pharyngeal plexus. The throat or the pharyngeal plexus deals with purification, sound. The animal would be the white elephant. The gem would be the tortoise. The food would be fruit. The emotion would be inspiration or repression. The sense organ would be the ears and healing. The main issue would be communication. The principle will be sympathetic vibration. The property would be resonance. The right is the right to speak. The goals are for harmony, resonance, creativity, communication. Biofunction is a simulation, and the archetype is the messenger. Now, The next one is the third eye, or the third eye chakra, or also known as the carotid plexus. Now, the third eye, or the carotid plexus, deals with to perceive. Now, it deals with light. The animal is the owl or the butterfly. The gem is lapis lazuli, or stone quartz. So the foods you have psychedelics, and the endo gland you have the pituitary. Emotions you have imagination or illusion. Property you have radiance, or that light we were speaking about in the beginning. And the right is the right to see. Goals, you have the ability to see patterns, or to grok, or to reach a state of heightened understanding. The carotid plexus main issue is insight, imagination, and vision. The biofunction is recognition, and the archetype is the visionary. So last but not least, you have the last seventh chakra, which represents the cerebral cortex, or the highest part of the head, also known as the Rosh. So you have thousandfold, you have thought, ox, or the bull. The gem, you have amethyst, or diamond. For food, you have fasting. And the endo gland, you have the pineal, or for emotions, you have understanding, or attachment. The main issue is understanding, profound understanding, through intuition or empathy. The property is awareness. The right is the right to know. The goals is expanded consciousness and cosmic awareness, and the biofunction is comprehension, and the archetype is the wise one. So when you're out, on your daily business, and you're just sitting there, looking at everybody walk past, and you start to notice like these different principles of people, and that's how you can see what level of consciousness people are resonating at. But specifically by the archetypes, you can see the wise one, you can see the visionary, you can see the messenger, or you can see the healer, the magician, the lover, or even the mother type, the mother or the father aspect. So and you can see these people in these principles in people, on the daily basis. Even just your friends or your family members, you can see what level they're radiating at any moment of their life. Just ask questions, and their responses, and please go over this list that we just gave you. This list will give you the understanding of these principles, so then you can see in your own life, within the different principles of your own life, like what level of consciousness you're radiating at. If you're always thinking about certain aspects like I just listed, then you can surely link yourself to what level or what state or what part of your body is activated and at what time. So, and then what you can do is keep a notebook, like, okay, well, at this time I was feeling like this, and then you can go back as reference to see your personal growth. Try to stay at a certain level of consciousness beyond that state of consciousness you were at last time. And this is what we're talking about when we speak on spiritual growth. Once you have the understanding of the hidden and the occult aspects, then you can go ahead and implement those into your own life and start to see changes. Now, let's see, Elijah, you got anything more to say?
Well, definitely, bro. Also, I'm gonna finish this out. All right. Let's see. Redemption. It says the meditation comes when you enter into the redemption. It comes when you enter into meditation and allow the liberation of this light from the lower three kings, which is the chakras. The first three chakras can liberate it. If you meditate often enough, this light will begin to open the fourth heart chakra. It says, and then the other two will follow once the light has graduated from the machine plant of the body. It is no longer what you would call Satan or the devil,
Right.
because you raise above the lower self to your higher self. The energy moves up. It says, but it is still Jesus, which you would say that story is referred to as us metaphysically, not literally, but metaphysically. It said, I'm gonna break this thing down in a minute. It says, and Lucifer, because the light has to pass the sixth eye, which is the pineal gland chakra, to become the Christ, or Christ meaning crystallize, something that's crystallized into perfection. Like I was just talking about, as far as the being like gold is tried in the fire. So to what is Christ is something that's crystallized, or like kind of like a crystallized seed. This seed is planted within inside of you, which is your own soul, and then when you rise above that, you become that complete Christ, or Christ or Christanillos, or Christ, something that's crystallized.
Another word for light body. Another word for Christ is the Christos. The Christos, or in Sanskrit they have Krishna. Krish or Krishna means the great black one. So you're talking about the pineal gland in and of itself. So we're speaking about the great black, or even Bobby Hemmett likes to speak about the Bindu seed, that Bindu seed.
Yep. And it's funny that you said that, the great black one.
Yeah.
When you go to Kemet, who's referred to as the great black one?
That would be Osiris or
That's
Amun
right.
Ra.
Osiris and Amun Ra. And see, Osiris and Amun Ra. They the great black one that you talking about. That we entering into right there. That black dot.
Also in Sanskrit as well, you look at the word Kali or Kalima. Kalima is the great black deity that dances on top of Shiva.
That's right.
So yeah.
So as you can see, all these things intertwine. At the end of the day, what we trying to tell you? We're trying to tell you that all these things merge to one system. It's not separate. The whole system of ancient Egypt, the Jewish culture, the we talking esoteric. We talking about sciences all compiled together, and that's the complete truth. When you merge all these, the Greek myth, the Titan myth, the Book of Gates, Book of the Dead, all these mythology, all these stories is your story. They all coincide with each other. And I remember one time I was at work one day when I was a security guard. I was at work, and somebody told me, every religion has a piece of the truth. You just got to find it. And I said, at that time I was reading the Bible, and I was like, man, this dude could be on to something. He was like, when you say Allah or Jehovah or Yahweh, you saying the same thing. And at that time I was like, man, this dude come with some false doctrine. He better get out of my face.
Yeah.
But see, now that I look back on it, he was right. All of them have a piece of the truth. You just gotta, you can't be stagnant. If you learned it up on the school, if you learned it up on the Catholic, if you learned it up on the any of these things, you take those pieces, you move on, you take a little bit there, and you move on, and you get don't stay in one don't stay in one system. Broaden the mind, because if you don't, then it's gonna get locked down. Your mind will get locked down and trapped, and then that's where you become. When somebody brings some new information to you, you'll be you gotta always keep an open mind to everything. When somebody tell you something that you don't know about, just say, "All right, I'll look into it," and then look into it. But don't say that they're wrong, based on just because you haven't looked into what they were saying yet. So we're gonna get deep into this thing. It says chakra to become the Christ or Christ one, Christian, Christ by fire. Remember in the scripture, it said that in Matthew, it said this baptism, when John the Baptist baptized Christ, he said this baptism will no longer be with water, but he's going to come baptize you with what? Fire. What is that fire? The Kundalini energy at the base of the spine.
Yep.
That's the Holy Ghost. If you want to think about it, that's the Holy Ghost. That's catching the spirit, and but it ain't like that per se, but that's what be going on in the church. That's the Kundalini rising up in people, be it, they call it other things like demons possession and all of these things like that. The demon possession thing is not necessarily demon possession. Actually, the things that's rising up in people, this
Actually,
thing.
when you get to the definition of demon, you see the word daimon.
Yep,
Daimon means
yep.
the ones who have knowledge. So you're activating the principles of awareness, the principles of knowledge and understanding within you, and that's actually goes into the shamanism of many different cultures, even Africa, where you can see them doing the dances, and they see like they're in a trance, and they transform into different beings, and these dance moves that you wouldn't even think about, and yeah, that's an aspect of the Kundalini. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Matter of fact, hold up. Let me get that real quick. I want y'all to grab your Bibles. That's on. Grab your Bible. I'm about to show you something. What I'm talking about.
Yep. And then we're also going to go into the Kundalini and the Jed pillar a little bit after this, and how you can use all this science, to activate and to tap into your higher self. That's really what the science is about. So stay tuned. Thank you guys for viewing. We appreciate it. Share this link. Take the link, share it. There's other people in your family that you have no clue that you think that you may not think about, that are on this sciences, but surely, they are on this and you just
No,
don't know it
definitely.
yet.
I want y'all out there to go to Matthew. You open your Bible and go to Matthew 3 and 5. Matthew 3 and 5. We're gonna get into this Matthew 3 and 5 real quick. You can take your time. Matthew 3 and 5. Oh, excuse me, not 3 and 5. I'm sorry, 3 and 11. Sorry about that. Matthew 3:11. 3:11. Matthew 3:11. It says, I indeed baptize you with water unto repentance. But he that cometh after me is mightier than I, whose shoes I am not worthy to bear. He shall baptize you with the Holy Ghost and with fire. So pause. So he said, this is John the Baptist talking to the people. And he was saying that, hey, you better get ready because Christ, the anointed one, or the Messiah, is going, the anointed one is going to come and baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. Now, this fire, why would it say? Now, see, you got to ask yourself, why is it saying fire? What are you going to do? Okay, if we take this literally speaking now, what is he going to do? He's going to literally baptize, put you in water, and then at the end throw you in some fire somewhere to cook like steak. What you gonna do? You gonna cook like steak? He gonna have you on the grill sizzling? No. It's metaphysically speaking, not literally. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's talking about that energy that's at that base of that spine, and it comes up like it feels. Anybody that research that Kundalini energy, and you will see that it comes up and it feels like fire. You ever been in church and they said, I feel like fire shut up in my bones? You know, that's what that's talking about. That's talking about that energy, that the energy rising up, and it feels like that. They call that, you see the symbol at the doctor's office? The symbol at the doctor's office with the pole and the snakes running through it. That, and it's also in the lap of the Baphomet too.
Yep.
That is the symbol of the Kundalini raising in man and woman.
I want to expand a little bit on what you were saying there. And you know, baptism in and of itself stands for well, let's go into the idea of repentance first. Repentance is a word that means the change of a mind, the change of a mind. So basically, it's talking about changing of the mind from the lower self unto the change unto the higher self, the change from lower thoughts into the change of thinking on a higher plane of consciousness. And so when the Kundalini rises, or this internal energy, remember we went over the 7 plexes, these 7 physical things that are in your body, that which has this energy and causes it to rise into lower. We're speaking about something that happens actually naturally, you know. And so the whole aspect of, you know, repentance is the aspect of the change of the mind, the changing of one's consciousness, the changing of how one is aware and what one is aware of. So instead of being aware of the lower mundane things, we are now having a change of consciousness in which we are aware of the higher, more things of the spirit.
That's right.
So when we actually are able to change or repent, we then enter into the idea of baptism, or a purification process of the mind, a purification in which symbolizes one has changed their mind unto the spiritual state. So this is the metaphysical understanding of what they do in the church. When you get baptized, you're basically just symbolizing to yourself that you have changed your consciousness towards God, or towards your higher self, because that's what God is. When you really want to get into the science, God is your higher self. So when anytime you read in the Bible and God said, you might as well just change that around and said, and your higher self said.
That's right.
Because that's really what it is. So you got anything more to add to that, bro?
Yeah, and I'm about to now I'm about to get into it. Now, since we dealt with Kundalini, now we finna go into this. It says this is the raising of the serpent. Once the energy has passed the 33rd vertebrae, Jesus dies. And now the energy becomes Christ, or anointed, and Lucifer, the morning star, has risen within you. It says the energy culminates in the third ventricle of the brain, in the right hemisphere. And here Jesus sits at the right hand of the Father. It says you have 33 vertebrae that make up your spine. The blazing star, morning star, rises to the pineal gland of the brain. Once it is lit, because that Kundalini lights it on fire. You know, it's almost like, you know, that Kundalini is it ignites all your chakras. It ignites it with fire and brings up everything that's lying. That's why it's important to deal with those emotions, because it will bring up everything, and you'll be dealing with all these things all at one time, because it will ignite it, you know, like fire, like whoosh. It's gonna ignite those energy centers in your body. And it says, it says once it has lit, thine house or brain will be fixed in the heavens of higher consciousness state. Revelations 2 and 26. Revelations 2 and 26. It says, he who overcomes and he who keeps my works to the end, to him I will give authority over nations. It says, he that overcometh the powers of matter shall break the vessel of the potter and the confines of the physical body to shivers, and I will give him the morning star. The morning star of Venus, Lucifer, the bright shining one, rules the higher mind related to Libria, the star system Libria, in the microcosmic hemisphere of the zodiac. To him that overcometh will I give to eat the forbidden manna, and I will give him a white stone. Now, what does the what does that white stone represent? The philosopher's stone.
Yeah, that's the philosopher's stone, or the enlightened pineal gland.
That's right.
And
That enlightened.
the philosopher's stone is actually what gives one immortal life, immortality.
Yep.
And then we can get in the aspect of what is produced by the pineal gland in and of itself every day is serotonin and melatonin.
That's right.
Which we'll get into in a little bit here about these two basic chemicals that have everything to do with your survival to your livelihood as we speak.
Yeah, most definitely.
And also your Christhood, because that's what we're speaking on today, is accessing the Christhood.
That's right.
Everybody has this ability. I don't care if you consider someone retarded, they have this ability. If they have a pineal gland, and well, you have to have a pineal gland in order to be alive, but in order to access your Christ consciousness, you have to be willing to, use your pineal gland. So even if you think someone is retarded, they still have the ability to be a Christ figure. Just saying.
That's right. And it says the hidden manna is the bread or grain of CERES, series vertigo, representing the spiritual nourishment provided by the intuition vertigo. The white stone is the philosopher's stone, which is dealt with extreme let's see, extensively in the section on the alchemy of Christ. Why? Because see, just as Christ turned water into wine. Listen, check this out. Listen what I'm about to say. Just because I'm about to say something deep, and so you have to go back and rewind just to catch this. It says, so just as Christ, right, turned water into wine, you have to do the same thing with your soul. You have to change. Remember earlier I talked about how your consciousness fell to a low state, and how we already operate whenever we get to a certain age. We operate within the lower chakras. So because of course they're all illuminated when you're a baby, but as you get older, you become imbalanced and you drop all the way down low.
Mm-hmm.
So now, but whenever you turn this water into wine, likewise in the same, you got to do with yourself and your soul. It's called inner alchemy, the alchemical process that's taking place within inside of you now. So now your job is to transform this water, which is your soul, your fallen soul that's not balanced, into wine, something that's fermented and something that's better, if not stronger. You're here to become a stronger people. So if you have to become stronger, so something that starts off as low, but you raise it up and bring all that to light. Now you manifested your greatness because you're purified and refined at that. You're at a refined state. You see what I'm saying? So you're refined. So that's alchemy, inner alchemy. It says Jezebel seduced. So in the book of Kings, you read about Elijah and Jezebel. Jezebel seduces my servants. The soul and the body is often symbolized by a falling woman, harlot, or prostitute. The seductive desires are the attractions of the flesh, which is bound which bind the soul to the physical. The only devil there is the uncontrolled ego mind, running to and fro. Remember when in the book of Job it said that, man, let's get that real quick. Cause see, I don't want nobody to think that I'm just making this stuff up. So we're gonna get, I think it's Job chapter 1.
Yeah, that's one thing. What the brother was saying, we don't want anybody to get anything mixed up. So we advise those of you who are listening, those of you who are watching in, tuning in, to go and research the information. If you hear a word, type it into Google, and you'll be sure to have some type of information come up. And we're here to go over these aspects. Help you guys get to a higher level of understanding of this stuff. And another thing, if you like this video, you like what we're talking about, if you have any questions, put it down. I believe we have a question and answer box over here. I forgot to mention a little bit earlier too.
Oh,
We have this question and answer box. So those of you have any questions that want to get answered. Okay, okay, we got some questions here, bro. Yeah, I got cut off for a bit, I think. Couldn't get it connected. I'm loving it though, guys. Thank you. So as you see, we have, people.
appreciate that, Casey Nelson.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So, we have people here watching, tuning in. I appreciate it. So let's get this stuff moving on. We'll probably be here for another hour or two, go through with the science. So hopefully you guys get something out of this. And then a little towards the end, we're going to give you some practices that you guys can use for your own spiritual growth. And so hopefully you guys can pick up on those practices at the end of this session.
Most definitely. So it's Job chapter 2. Job chapter 2. And I'm gonna start at verse 1. Job chapter 2, verse 1. Coming out of the Bible. Because I'm dealing with the metaphysics of the Bible. It says, again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said, said unto Satan, from whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil, and still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yeah, all that a man hath will he give for his life. Put forth thy hand now and touch his bone and flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. Pause. So now, the understanding here is that the ego mind, the term goes to say, okay, if you don't control your mind, then your mind will control itself. So uncontrolled ego mind, which is the conscious mind, running to and fro up and down in the earth. The mythology, the earth is the physical body, and the mind, not literal earth. Lucifer and Jesus, the morning star, the fallen angel or angle of light, that is you, seeks to come home to the Father's house, which is the brain or the higher consciousness state. Yes, this is the greatest secret. So this is the greatest secret that they don't want you to know. Many religious institutions are not going to teach the metaphysical breakdown on what this stuff really means, because it's encoded. It says Lucifer, Jesus, the morning star, the fallen angel or angle of light, that is you, seeks to come home. That's why you always get that feeling, you know what? I want to go home. Your house is not your house, but where is home? A lot of people might say, well, my home is in Africa, or my home is this, or my home is in Israel. where you might be longing for a home, for a particular home, and it's not a physical home that you're seeking. You're seeking to get back to your highest state again. All of us are beings that supposed to be on a higher level. All of us, you know, not just black, but everybody that has a physical body. You have fallen, to a very low state in the mind and the mental. Hell is a mind state. You know,
And don't get the brother wrong. There are people here on this planet, on this earth, in this dimension that is here to keep you here. And
that's right.
what we're trying to say is to find the science to get you out.
That's right. Yeah, that's the whole thing is what we talking about. We trying to elevate. Trying to get out. So it says, yes, this is the greatest secret. Then the light will be united with its true family once again. While it's still in that body, this is the whole Bible story. The prodigal son is the Lucifer or Jesus, etc. Even through my body shall wither away, yet in the flesh I shall see God's face. And I call this place pineal or Jacob. Make no mistake that you are an angle of light. So you that's listening in, and that's looking at this video, you are an angle of light.
Yep. And when we speak about the pineal body or the pineal gland, we're speaking about your light body, the chakras, all of that. That's your light body. If you're a light
That's
being,
right.
you have a light body. So that's what we're speaking on, the science of that life, that livity. How you live within this body. It's not focused on, the things of this world. So that's why we have to come to you with these different sciences from these different cultures, so that way we can be able to explain to you that we are not just a physical body, and it's not just us saying it. It's been mentioned for thousands of years.
That's right. You so so you are the angle of light, a proton taken up in residence in a physical body to communicate with other light beings that are taking up residence in a physical body also. So that would conclude my intellectual understanding is that you are that body of light, and you must remember your job and your responsibility first and foremost to yourself, to elevate yourself, to cultivate that soul, to deal with those past issues that you don't want to face. You know, um, deal with the inner child. Deal with the inner child. Understand that you are the greatest thing walking upon the face of the earth. You that's listening in that camera, you the greatest thing. And what you have to do is you got to understand that a lot of people are not going to understand this. A lot of people are not going to understand this. This is for you. You the special one, you the light one, you the one that's operating with light. That's why you was attracted into this video. You know, you light and you special. And that's the most important thing about it is, so don't walk with your head down, pick your head up. You the greatest thing.
Yeah, that's right. And just to expand a little bit more on what he was saying is like, we live in this world where everybody wants to make you like somebody else, and not like yourself. And what we're trying to bring is to allow you to become who you truly are. Fuck the bullshit. We want the cultivation.
That's
And
right.
when speaking about spirituality, there's a type of perception, that it's cupcakes and rainbows, that, oh, you're the chakras and the kundalini and yoga. But in actual reality, this shit is for people who are really trying to hold the sword and fight the inner demon, and take the sword, and uh you know compete with the beast within. And that's really what it's about. It's not necessarily a cupcakes and rainbows experience. The raising of the kundalini is it's more of an experience of you being on that journey, and like the Harry Potter movie where he went to slay the fucking beast. That's exact representation of who you are. Harry Potter is another representation in the occult, is an aspect of you going into you know, the Harry Potter school is nothing more than your physical body on a spiritual plane, and you trying to you trying to evolve to that level of spiritual evolution. But the whole thing is, you know, you're on that journey to slay the beast, man. It's not necessarily about, you know, cupcakes and rainbows, being peaceful and all that shit. Because I can tell you a lot of my Kundalini experiences are the exact opposite. And, you know, I'm fighting these things, you know, I'm fighting the negative aspects, you know. So uh, that's another aspect of, you know, these sciences. But, you know, I'm actually about to go into the Kundalini and the Jed pillar, so we can get another broader understanding of this subject. So the great work involves cultivation of oneself through the expansion of one's consciousness into the interconnectedness of ourselves with the one source essence. And this essence is the essence of the above and the below, the here and the now. Is the substance which is the intermediary between the spirit, the mind, and the body, the energetic, the thoughts, and the material. Through this cultivation, we can realize our potentialities as well as our actualities. So we must manifest our true selves, the spirit self, the anima, through our metaphysical cultivation of the soul. This means tapping into the primordial river or of cosmic life within our being. The Kundalini and the Jed pillar are Kemetic representations of alchemy, the alchemy of creation of the philosopher's stone, or the pineal gland, the Bindu seed, this melanin complex. So this the system of light code frequencies. Now, before I go any further, let's see. So we're talking about restoring the primordial self, restoring the balance between the inner principalities of Ra and Thoth, Isis and Nephthys, Ra and Horus, or Horus and Set. The mantras and the other mystical practices are used to engage these elemental principles in order to carry out the great work, the raising of the Kundalini through the main centers of the body, and like I was mentioning before, those nervous plexes, and ultimately attaining the Christ anointing oil, turning that water into wine, and produced within the body at the head center. The mantras are the luminous hymns, or what is known as the Om. You know, we all know about the Om, you know, and this is that sound, the luminous hymn to the netters, or the divine principles, the divine principalities through the words or the vibrations of light and sound, which are words that connects us and invokes aspects of the cosmos within ourselves through our DNA, or what he was talking about, the angles of light, these light code frequencies. So the one who raises the Jed pillar becomes the judge and speaks the truth, or Ma'at, and embodies the wisdom of Solomon. So the daily life becomes inspired with spiritual meaning, and in such states of consciousness, we tap into our greatest life powers. So through cultivating and performing sacred tasks, we elevate our Kundalini energy or states of consciousness, the Jed pillar, or the chakras, and by balancing these principalities within, we begin to elevate the world around us through our states of consciousness. So the whole reason why I can come here and speak now is because I've done this work. So I have that experiential understanding in which I can bring to those who may not have that. So one must realize that the balance between Ra and Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis and Nephthys, Jesus and Satan, is within ourselves. So we must be this in order to be alive. And that's why you have the stories in the books that you have, the spiritual books, is because they are a representation of what is currently going on. So this is the basic focus within the body, or within the universe. The universe, the body are synonymous. Those are the same things. The universe is considered to be the harmony and the coming together of the opposite energies, or opposing energies, or principalities, known as in Kemetic language, or the Meta nature, It's called Unifer, or the universe. So the coming together of the yin and yang, the masculine and feminine principles. So man and woman realizing themselves one with the creator and the cosmic reflection of the universal drama. The knowledge of self extends to the neurological network, which allows us to manage and utilize the powers of the reptilian system in an esoteric manner. So we spoke about the principle of the serpent or the snake. And this is another aspect of representing the Kundalini. So in both ancient Kemet and throughout ancient Eastern world, the reptilian brain is symbolized as a primordial primal serpent, or the serpent power. This is the serpent power of the breath. The breath and the reptilian brain are synonymous. And the R brain, or reptilian brain, is the ancient system which provides us with the enormous amount of power or life source energy, the primal energy. This is also the part of the body which carries life force energy throughout the body in the form of the nerves and feelings, like we were talking about earlier. So next what we'll talk about is the three brains, but we got another question here, so let's see if we can answer this. So it says, why do you think this information has been coded for so many years, for so many centuries? Is there more good than bad in the world? And I believe what you guys are doing is going to help some people. Okay, do you want to answer some of this, Elijah? I know I can answer some of this, but so why do you think this information has been coded for so long? Basically, this information essentially is coded because of the simple fact that a lot of this information is so powerful that it can either be used for wrong or used for good. But I think it's coded for the simple fact that those with the eyes to see will be able to see it, just like it says in the biblical aspect. Those with the eyes to see will see; those with the ears to hear will hear. So I think it goes into the aspect too.
And so the question was, why do you think this information has been coded for so many centuries? Is there more good than bad in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Doing okay, so there yeah, this information, such as the biblical text or whatever, um it was encoded. And also too, it come these records. Remember, Bible comes from a Greek word called biblios, which means a compilation of records. So a lot of these records came from many different places, such as the ancient Egyptian civilization. You can find a lot of that in the Book of the Dead, the papyruses, and this and that, the Book of Gates, the Book of Heaven and Hell, and different things like that. So yes, these things was encoded to on purpose, because of course they knew that these stories we wouldn't be able to decode them, right off the bat. So it's encoded so that we can find these true meanings within the story. At one point I was just like, man, I'm just gonna throw the whole thing in the garbage, whenever I found out. But then I realized, what? It's a deeper meaning behind these stories, and these stories mean so much more than just going to church on Sunday or Saturday or whatever the case may be. But it's a meaning behind it, and a lot of people I don't know if you was in here in the beginning when I was talking about how the word allegory, which means parable, or certain things like that. So these things are just stories with a symbolic meaning. It's no different from a movie. Once you watch a movie, you find that it's a code within the movie, and you be like, wait a minute, that movie has a deeper meaning behind the movie. The movie's not actually saying this, but it's saying that, and it has a stronger symbolic meaning. Same thing with your dreams. It has a deeper meaning behind your dreams. So, in ancient culture, we told stories like that. Kind of. Let's just say, for example, Casey, if I tell you a story, And that same story that I'm telling you, you tell your children, then your children tell their children, and their children tell their children, and their children. Somewhere along the somewhere along the line, that story is gonna get, thrown off a little bit and over exaggerated and things like that. And I think that um, there's a balance between both, good and bad in the world. You can't have one without the other. Just like if you read the Buddha story, Buddha, he wanted to suffer to get, he wanted to go to the root of suffering to get to enlightenment.
Yeah, that's right.
So the bad, and even when you read Buddhism tradition, you study that tradition, a bad situation necessarily can also be a good situation. It's just depending on how you look at it. Like I told you, like I explained earlier, when you think back on your life and you look at the negative things that happen, you realize that, wait a minute, that taught me something. Now I no longer do this, but I do that. So
Yeah, and that actually goes into what I was going to speak about with the three brains. That was going to be the next part. Yeah.
yeah, most definitely. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
But good questions though. That's a very good question.
Yep.
Very good.
Like
That
we
was a great
said,
question.
if you guys have any comments, questions, or anything you want to mention, want us to mention or speak on, just write it down in the question and answer box, or I believe it's in the comments section. I'm not too sure, but just leave your questions and comments, and we'll see them, and we'll try to answer them. When we see them. Still got a couple more hours, or a couple more minutes we'll be on. So go ahead and post your stuff with it, whatever you want to say. It's always appreciated. Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna go grab some.
Okay. So let's speak on the three brains. So there are the three brains of a human being. You have the reptilian, the mammalian, and the neocortex. Now, most of you guys know about, hearing, well, the mammalian brain. We just covered the reptilian brain, or the R brain, and how that's in the ancient system symbolic to the snake or the serpent primordial energy, as well as that which provides us with the enormous amount of power or life source energy, as far as for our bodies to be alive. And then it is carried throughout the body in the form of nerves, and as well as feelings. So let's speak about how all of these brains intertwine with each other. So the reptilian brain is the brain known in scientific terms as the R brain, which is automatically, automatically or anatomically very similar to the brain of modern day reptiles, which this part of the brain is completely instinctual and is based on survival and regulates most of our autonomic functions, such as breathing, heart rate, body temperature, and fight or flight response. This reptilian brain feels no emotions and is not interested in logic. So if you ever try to think of a situation where you're doing something which you shouldn't be doing, but you have like a part of yourself, you just can't stop doing it. Well, this is the R brain. It's that aspect which is not interested in thinking about while you're doing it, but feels no emotions while you're doing it, but does it anyway. And there's also the aspect of yourself that deals with fight or flight, your heart rate, body temperature, so and breathing. So different natural functions of the sort. So basically, when we're dealing with spirituality, we're talking about tapping into these natural functions, and specifically this reptilian brain, which is connected to the nervous system and the seven nerve plexes of the body, and so on and so forth. So the next brain you have is the limbic system. The limbic system, second brain known as the mammalian brain, and it's made up of primarily the amygdala and the hypothalamus and the hippocampus. This brain is based on instincts and emotions and is known as the M brain or the mammalian brain, which is most dominant in mammals and flourished about the time of dinosaurs. So we're talking about reptilian brain. Now we're speaking about the mammalian brain. So as you can see, we're speaking about different aspects of nature. Now, even deeper, you can ask yourself why it's called the reptilian or the mammalian brain. So the mammalian brain flourished about the time of dinosaurs. So we're talking about old brains here, human beings with old brains, right? So really the oldest two brains are the reptilian brain and the limbic brain, or the M brain, the mammalian brain. The amygdala in particular and the hippocampus are both involved in the process of perception and gathering information from the environment via our emotions. So the hippocampus acts more as a way to perceive and then parcelling out all of the data into the processing either by the amygdala in the event perceived threat or in the cerebral cortex for all other needs. And this is very important to understand when we're dealing with the spiritual aspect, because the hippocampus is related to memory, involved with emotions and perception, either through episodic or videographic memory or decorative memory, which is like photographic memory. So then we have the neocortex or the new cortex, the new brain. The third brain is also known as the new brain or the neocortex. The new brain is well developed in higher mammals, such as human beings, and is responsible for speech, writing, and higher order thinking. So the neocortex, so through the neocortex, we recognize the value of all things and people in the universe. It is the higher cortical areas of selfless love, or what they call unconditional love, reasoning, and logic, which takes place here. So this brain also allows us to create new ideas, understand mathematics, write poetry, compose music and art, as well as envision the future. The neocortex is also involved in meditation and transcendental spiritual and religious experiences. So that is why I said this is important right here, to know the three brains, because with the three brains and the understanding of the three brains, you have an idea of how and the reasons why you do the things that you do, and what part of the brain you can access to do that. Just like I mentioned with the plexes, the 7 nerve plexes up the spine, which correlates to different principles. They have stones and different things, that foods that even you eat. So when dealing with the neocortex in particular, it's dealing with spirituality, higher order of thinking, getting out of the realms of sin or greed or fear, or even just being over emotional. You know what I'm saying? So, but in order to do that, you have to tap into that primordial aspect, or the R brain, the mammalian brain, in order to tap into that neocortex, which is the higher aspect. So, and that's what we're talking about when we speak about the creative mind and different things like that. It's that neocortex, or being able to go beyond the lower brains, the lower thought patterns. So, do you want to add anything to this, bro?
Yeah, sister asked me a question. She asked me, can your inner child be evil, or just my own mind, or was it just her own mind? So basically, the inner child necessarily can't be evil per se. The word, technically you're evil, but it can have qualities that's not good qualities. For example, if you while you was a child, whenever you have certain fits in your life, or when you misbehave, as an adult, or when certain things happen in your life. For example, if your inner child is spoiled, it can manifest in your adult life. You would be a spoiled adult. Or if your inner child has been through certain traumas which made you angry, as a result of it those traumas or those things that happened in the past have made you angry, then it can result of you being violent, or it can result of you being, having some type of a bipolar, or you might, snap on someone whenever they bring something up that you don't like, certain things like that. So know that it can't be evil, but it can have certain things that wouldn't serve you any good as an adult. So what you would have to do is, you would have to go back into the past, which means, go revisit those issues. Remember the time when you was in that trauma situation, and talk to yourself. You have to parent yourself. That's the thing that they teach you in psychology. When you study psychology, that's the number one thing that they teach you, is how to communicate with your inner child. First of all, let's get this out the window. There's nothing crazy about talking to yourself. It's nothing crazy about talking to yourself. At the end of the day, you're your own best friend. If you can't talk to yourself, then who can you talk to? You're going to talk to someone else. Okay, someone else might tell your information to the next person and the next person. So it's things that you have to deal with within yourself. If someone was abused, you might go inside yourself and say, I remember when, this person abused me. And, inner child, talk to yourself, say, inner child, I know that you was abused and hurt, but I want to get rid of all the memories that no longer serve me. Because what that's doing is, the ego wants you to keep, like what me and the brother was touching on earlier about the ego. The ego wants you to hold on to that hatred, that fire that burns you forever to the core to your soul, and it wants you to never deal with those issues that plague your mind so heavily in your adult life. So what you're gonna have to do is, you're gonna have to say, look, I am no longer mad at the past. I forgive myself. I forgive that person, whoever did this to me. I forgive them. And then you have to, communicate with the inner self on a daily basis and talk to it. So it's no different from parenting yourself. There's nobody out there can parent you but you. You can parent yourself. It's okay to be creative, draw pictures, draw your favorite pictures that you used to draw when you was a child. Activities, it's okay to play. It's okay to, if you want to go outside in the snow or make snow angels, do it. Do whatever your inner child wants you to do, because, like Michael Jackson, for example. Michael Jackson, his father abused him when he was young. In his adult life, he began, he was, basically he loved to play. If you see his house, he had Neverland and all these different things in his home, Peter Pan and all these things, because he was connected with his inner child. Your inner child, can take you to your essence and take you to your higher self and bring you into that state of that supreme mind. Because when you was thinking like a child, you was more connected to the divine. So to answer your question, is the inner child evil? I mean, can your inner child be evil? Not in that sense, but it can have some bad. It could have some bad qualities that it didn't deal with when you was a child. That you wasn't able to deal with. Like I said, if you was abused, you might behold this anger, forever. And it's like, damn, why every time I turn, I'm angry? You got to deal with it. You have to talk to the inner child and remove that. Shine the light on what's going on with it, because it's still the same person. But you separated yourself from that entity or from that part of yourself whenever you got older. When your parents told you it's time to grow up now, you separated yourself from that person that you used to be. And so by separating ourselves from it, we no longer identify with it, and we continue to ignore that side of ourselves. You see what I'm saying? So, anything you want to add on that, brother?
Yeah, I was gonna say I wanted to add a couple aspects, even from what I was gonna go into, even after you were speaking, was the creative mind, the conscious and the subconscious mind, and how they are programmed between the ages of 5 and 7. You know, and that voice that you've referred to me as me is actually not me. So like the mind refers to two different features of the conscious experience, specifically the conscious and the subconscious mind. So the conscious mind is the logical, thinking, rational part of yourself, and the conscious mind is fully formed when you're 5 or 7 years old, and is that internal voice that you refer to as me, in quote. So this is the part of the mind that always asks the question why, and always wants to solve any and all the problems logically, though even the modes of scientific practice tells us we cannot solve all the mysteries of the universe and of our existence logically. And if we could do it logically, solve all of your problems, you would have you've already done it by now, and there would be no problems. So the conscious mind is important because of the experience, but it is fairly limited into what it can accomplish for you on its own and on its own behalf. In fact, the conscious mind only uses about 10 to 15% of the brain, and the conscious mind holds about 9 to 5 chunks of information in your awakeness at any given time. So, and the rest of the information is about 90%, which is screened by the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind operates through these specific functions. So it's sequential, logical, linear, thinking, awake, deliberate, carries out cognitive functions, seeks the solutions and tries to understand the problem, aware of the now, and outcome orientated, so only interested in the results or the cause and effect. So the conscious mind always tries to find a solution, but it never can, because both the problem and the solution lie somewhere else, i.e., the subconscious mind. So with the subconscious mind, so what we consciously perceive as our realities are just the effects of anything existing within the cosmos. We can only contemplate on the cause of existence through the conscious mind. It cannot further investigate the problem through its rational barriers and intellectual demeanor. So, just to expand a little bit on this, it is that conscious mind or the conscious aspect of ourself which is developed when we are younger. So, a lot of times when you're dealing with that inner child, the inner child, is going through some problems. But this is what I'm speaking about when we deal with spirituality and developing ourselves. It's about, going into that subconscious aspect, finding that subconscious person and dealing with that, because there's a lot of things that 90% of you is subconscious and only 10% of you is conscious. So you're not going to change the 90% of yourself with your 10%, so you have to go in there with your whole 90% of your mind. But that brings me into the subconscious aspect. The subconscious mind is the sub or the lower aspect of the mind, which actually uses between 85 and 90% of the brain, as it is processing information through experiences and involving the mind. So the subconscious mind processes millions of messages of sensory information every second. It is responsible for all the emotions and memories which one has, as well as runs one's autonomic functions of the body: the heart rate, the lungs, the breathing, intestines, digestion, etc. So the R brain, functions of the R brain. So the subconscious mind runs behavior patterns, often basing them off of what it has experienced in the past. So again, dealing with the child, the inner child. This is part of your brain which is conditioned to run specific behavior and emotional patterns based on previous experience. The subconscious mind was conditioned to certain behaviors or ways of dealing with a situation in life, usually during childhood. And so this is usually why we tend to repeat the same old thought patterns and behaviors as our parents. So every time you run a subconscious behavior program, it produces the same results due to neurological conditioning, through modalities of perception and experience. And it produces those same results every time. However, if you make changes in the conditioning process of the subconscious mind, of the perception, and how the way you interpret your experiences in the mind, then those changes could possibly produce different behavioral results. So that's exactly what we're talking about when we're dealing with the spirit, producing different behavioral results. You look at yourself as poor. Well, why? You know what I'm saying? Well, that's because there's a program in your mind that makes you see yourself as that. So with spirituality, we're dealing with the process of going into that program and changing that and becoming the true self. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is rich when you really think about it. You know what I'm saying? What makes you poor or rich? It's not the physical money that you have. You know what I'm saying? So many of our subconscious programs help you to become more effective with behavior in your life. For example, when you first learn how to ride a bike, you use your conscious mind to rationally remember where the pedals were, what they did, and how to balance yourself, and where the brakes were. And you did this all through your logic and reasoning of the conscious mind. But after some time of repeating those actions, as you continue practicing, you were able to ride the bike easily and effortlessly without even thinking about it. So this is because the subconscious mind had taken over, allowing your bike riding experience to be more effective and safe for you, and the behavioral patterns of how to ride a bike became internalized and actualized because of the subconscious mind. So we spoke about the qualities of the conscious mind, but what are the qualities of the subconscious mind? Here they are. Intuitive, carries out spontaneous processing. It is the domain of creation, or the embodiment of thoughts and ideas in the form of behavioral patterns. It is the domain of emotions. It remembers everything that has ever happened to you and keeps those memories repressed in order to protect you. That's your ego. It wants you to keep you alive, so it's got to protect you. Sometimes that mode of protection isn't always the best. It holds resources and provides solutions. Runs the body, the autonomic functions or bodily behavioral functions, not intellectual. So it is also in charge of sleeping, dreaming, and altered states of consciousness, or the states of consciousness needed or experienced when going through the spiritual process of raising the kundalini and such things as that. Also, it's in charge of your whole experience, takes everything personally, and represents all learning, behavior, and change. What else? So it initiates in early systems of the spiritual art, had to enter into a phase of training in which one would become acutely aware of those primal energies of the reptilian level. They would do this at the beginning stage of raising the serpent and raising one's consciousness or primal energy, elevating one's thoughts through the breath to set up the pillar of Osiris. This involves the working of the body through the metaphysical means. This also allows one to release a variety of physical energies trapped lower states of thought, obstructed chi energy flow. So in physical terms, it is possibly involved in tapping into the archaic hidden subconscious memories and allowing one to identify with the netters, the Elohim, the deities of nature, of the snake or the reptilian within. The second stage was learning how to raise the serpent energy. This is that stage of one's consciousness along the spine to the paleo mammalian brain to that of the cosmic consciousness. The paleo mammalian brain is the site of the midbrain in the limbic system and wraps around the reptilian brain. This is part of the brain that offers one more adaptable and inventive intelligence, as well as many more openings to nature and the functions of reality. So the early basis of civilization exists with this paleo mammalian brain. Trace memories of the archaic mammalian aspect of self is found in the species of prodigious preparations for partnership and procreation, which would give us the emotional development for production and sustenance for family or tribe or society. The paleo-mammalian brain involves the limbic system, which is also the seat of emotions. The cranial endocrine glands serves as the system of the brain. It is the course of sexual development, sleep, dreams, desire, pleasure, and pain. It is the seat for all the emotions of human life, as well as the seat of intuition, the spirit, the soul. This part of the brain grounds our intelligence, which comes from the neocortex, or part of the brain system. When amplified, this part of the brain can be experienced as the inflation of the ego and a great amount of emotional passion for willing one's way, or destructive charisma. So the third level of this process, of spiritual development, is the activation of the paleo-mammalian brain. This gives one a deep sense of emotional compassion for all living and sentient beings. Bodhisattva or bodhisattva is a state where one has amplified spiritualized limbic system. This is portrayed through many cultures and religious mythos. When one realizes that this power is used for the service of others rather than to have power over someone else, then that's when they realize this bodhisattva state. This is a state of mind where all things are non-dual, meaning all things are perceived as one essence, nothingness, but yet the only thing. At this state, a deepened sense of knowing or awareness of compassion is experienced. At this state, in ancient temples of Kemet, the initiates were given the scepter of Osiris to hold. The fourth level has to do with the neo-mammalian brain, or the neocortex and the frontal lobes. These parts of the brain are the last parts to develop, though are 5 times larger than the 2 older brains. The neocortex is the right and the left hemisphere of the brain, each with its own capabilities. The left is the temporal, linear, objective, analytical, language, and logic. The right deals with the visual, spatial, intuitive, subjective, and analogical, or thought. So these brains work in unison to control all conscious thought and activities such as reason, will, analysis, logic, cultivation or circulation, creativity, and voluntary movement. When developed spiritually, one may experience a sense of altruism, empathy, identity, compassion, and also higher orders of love and harmony. The frontal lobes make way for the development of visionary and higher mind activities. This is part of the mind that can enter into the realm of causality itself. Activation of this brain is the activating enormous power of reflection, self-awareness, and conscious union with other functions, and its development allows integration with the other brains. During deep states of meditation or contemplation and breathing exercises, one may cultivate a sense of heightened creativity. This is part of the brain that enters into a frequency of resonance with higher orders of reality or different aspects of life that we cannot be familiar with through our ordinary senses. We enter into realms which are connected to the psyche and possible doorways of the neurological system, which leads to great archetypal center of existence. At this level, one has the capacity to tap into the source of levels of reality, as well as access the sounds of spheres and see the architectures of creation through conscious experience. So yeah, that's basically going into also the other aspects of that inner child as well.
Mm-hmm.
You want to add anything, bro, to that?
I mean, you hit everything on point, man. You hit everything. Everything was on point.
Yeah, man. So I was thinking we can go into some other aspects, but I'm kind of getting a little tired over here, but it's all good. People want some more stuff. This says, great cast, guys. Been tuning in for about 2 hours now, and we'll tune in again. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, brothers. So, we got some comments here. We got some questions that got answered, and some replies and stuff. So, is there
Appreciate
anything?
that.
Yeah, is there anything you want to add?
For me, oh no, man, you know, you hit everything on point, and you know, I hope that people, you know, was greatly edified out there, you know, really, um, you know, and really educated on these things, man, because this stuff is important. And, you know, we doing this, you know, for the love of you all. We love you all. And, you know, we just, you know, want you to, you know, just to be aware of these things, you know, this information. And is this information, you know, has been out for a long time, for a very long time. And, you know, we just want to bring in, you know, our age group and show our age group, look, you know, this information is, you know, is out there. You know, many people still do not know that you can't take, you know, the book, you know, the book,
Really?
these religious texts, literally speaking, you know, but they're encoded with parables and deep and dark sayings, you know. So that, I just want to add, you know, that's all I want to add, man.
Yeah, and I think on our next chat we can go into some deeper principles, like start to define like what these different principles mean, as far as Jesus or Yeshua, and going into different principles, man. Because I think people want this type of stuff. They want to go into the different sciences and how it relates to these things, and how it's used. So like I said, we were going to get into some practices. We're at the end of the session, so we can go ahead and do some practices. I have a basic meditation technique that we can all try. And basically what you do is, you can sit in a chair. I'm right now sitting in my chair right now. But then you can go ahead and, just do little light breathing, with your eyes closed, and think about, all the things that we talked about. And just to make it easier, we're not trying to, make you think of some crazy stuff and then do this or do that, just basic meditation. Um, so basically use your breath in order to allow your mind to go into those different states of consciousness. And so yeah, we've been speaking for a while now on this subject, and we'll come back to you guys with another video. And so stay tuned. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see
I
you guys in
appreciate
the
it.
next one.
I appreciate it, and peace. And I'm gonna leave you with namaste.
Yes, man. To the God within us, to the God within you guys.
Right on. Peace.
Peace.